of my video about how I have CVS, cyclic vomiting syndrome. So if you want to know more about what it is and how it affects my life, when I got it, all of that jazz, go back to my last video. I'll put the link in the description, but go back to that video because I obviously don't have time to repeat all of it. So I want to jump into family background, things they look for when they're trying to figure out, is this what you have? So one thing is they know it is linked to migraines. My mom does have migraines, so that's one of the reasons they were like, we think this is what you have. Some people actually call it abdominal migraines, and I was actually on migraine medication for a while trying to control it. It did not work for me. I've never had migraines. I've gotten pretty severe headaches, but it was a side effect of medications. It was not, like, I don't have actual migraines. Another thing that some people say is linked to it, some people say it isn't. It's still kind of a little bit of a controversy in the CVS world, but is marijuana use. Is that linked? Does it help? Does it not? My mom nor I have ever used marijuana, so for us, it's not a cause, but I'm not saying that it's not a cause in general. I have no idea. It's not something we've looked into because it's not something that we've ever needed to look into. So the next thing I want to cover is kind of how you get diagnosed, what tests they do, what patterns they look for. So getting diagnosed is one of the hardest parts about this disorder. There's no test. I had tons of blood work done. I've had upper GI, lower GIs. I've had multiple of those. I've had I don't know what test it is, but it's like you drink the barium, which is so gross. Which, by the way, someone who can't stop puking, probably not the best idea to give them that test. Tried to tell that nurse that, told her I'm gonna throw up, and she thought I was being like a bratty little kid. Then I threw up, and she never gave me a bucket or anything, so it was everywhere, and it partially got on her, and my dad was like, she was like, you need to get on your daughter, that's not okay. My dad was like, she warned you, she asked for something, and you told her if she wasn't willing to drink it, you're gonna put a funnel down her throat. That wasn't very nice either. He's like, my daughter's in the hospital, could you be a little sympathetic? So, I had that, CTs, you name it, I feel like I've had it. But all of it comes back normal because there's no test to show whether you have this. Now, could there potentially be some form of test where it might be a DNA test because they know it can be passed down in the future? I sure hope so. That way people can, even if it's an expensive test, you can pay for this blood work and know exactly what you have. But currently that is not available. They don't know what strain or anything causes it. Patterns they look for, frequency, is it just vomiting that you're having a problem with, or do other problems tend to piggyback off of it? And another thing they look for is triggers. So luckily, I know what my triggers are now, and that's how I'm able to manage it. I'm in a controlled state now, which is great. I can pretty much live life, and that is wonderful. But I know my triggers are emotional, so like excitement, anxiety, lack of sleep, dietary, and I guess that's pretty much it, just like emotional and dietary. But there's a lot that goes into my emotional category. So for example, emotional, when I get very excited. So one of the things that this disorder makes it very hard to do is travel. And as you guys have seen on my channel, I love traveling. That's my favorite thing to do. And traveling is very difficult when you have this, because one, you're worried about if you're gonna get sick while you're gone. Huge problem if you don't speak the language of wherever you're at, or if you go into a new hospital, there's insurance problems, billing problems, communication problems. Guys, you can imagine, do you want to go into some random hospital with a disorder that most people don't know about? No. So that makes it difficult. Several times I would get so excited about vacation, we'd wake up the morning of and I became sick and we couldn't go. Multiple vacations have been canceled because of me. I felt so bad for my sisters, so bad for my parents. Literally the morning of, we're supposed to leave to go to the beach, and by that afternoon I'm in the hospital and we didn't get to go. That's happened multiple times. It got to the point where my family would not tell me we're going on vacation. Obviously they can't do that now because I have work, but when you're a child, your parents can do that. They have your schedule. So they would just not tell me that we're going somewhere. I'd wake up that morning and they're like, go get in the car, we're going to an amusement park today. And I was like, this is awesome. But yeah, so it makes it very hard to travel. My dad jokes and says I never book a trip without insurance. We buy travel insurance on everything because you just never know. When you know that excitement is a trigger, then you know travel and a vacation can lead to a problem. Another thing is anxiety, which is hard to manage, for me anyway, because you get nervous about the fact that you're getting sick, which makes you sick because anxiety is a trigger. But yeah, so that one's hard. Also, as I mentioned, like one time I missed the final exam. I mentioned that in my last video. Finals, big test at school, that's one of the ways that we figured it out is I would frequently get sick like right around my birthday and right around final exams and right around school starting. And it's all these things that I was nervous about or excited about. I mean, I wasn't nervous about my birthday. But final exams, school was a big thing to me. I wanted good grades. And so I would stress out and I would get sick. And then same with back to school. I was nervous. Everyone gets nervous going back to school. And for me, it would just amp it all up and be a huge problem. So another thing is lack of sleep. So this is one of the ways we kind of figured out that I have kind of a problem, and it's not just the run-of-the-mill, a kid who maybe has a weak immune system or something, is every time I would go to a sleepover, not only would I get super excited with my friends, but also we'd stay up late. Every single time I would end up sick the next day. So eventually it just became, before we knew what was causing this, it just became my parents would pick me up around 10 p.m. from a sleepover, and we noticed that fixed it. So my mom was like, I don't understand, because how does me picking you up at 10 p.m. versus like 8 a.m. make a huge difference on like a hospitalization or not? And so it stunk. I used to get so mad at my mom, like, I'm not gonna get sick this time, I won't. I mean, I couldn't control it. But yeah, that became an issue. And we just noticed that lack of sleep and excitement, because mine was kind of scheduled. So that was one of the ways that kind of pointed us to it. Not everyone had like a kind of a schedule. When my mom was like, I could almost draw like a box on a calendar and be like, finals week, Rachel in the hospital. But not everyone's is like that, but mine is, because these are my triggers. Obviously, if you get a run-of-the-mill virus or something, that's going to trigger it. Anything that makes you throw up is going to trigger it. But then another one is food, which we had no idea, because I would go sometimes 6 months without being sick. So we had no idea that food was a trigger, because in those 6 months, I ate and did whatever. But ends up, gluten is a huge trigger for me. 4 years ago, I actually cut out gluten, and since then, I have not been in the hospital. I have been sick twice, but I knew that it was the gluten, so now I have medication to kind of counteract what I've ate. But it still does like some damage to my like organs and stuff because of the disorder, but I don't necessarily have to go to the hospital, and the earlier I catch it, the better. So if I realize I accidentally ate something that was cross-contaminated, then I just go ahead and take some medication. So like I mentioned before, I do not have celiac disease, but you basically have to treat it as if you do. And yeah, those are my triggers. Along with anxiety, obviously stress goes along with that, and really anything that's going to make you nauseous. So my family does not have a history of being motion sick. I do not get motion sickness, and so I think that kind of helped us get the diagnosis, because if I was getting sick every time we were taking road trips or on a ride, I think that would just make it so much more difficult. But it's crazy, because I can just get too excited or too stressed out, start puking, and have to go to the emergency room, but I can seriously ride a roller coaster all day long and be fine. So weird. But that's one of the ways we knew it was an actual disorder, and that it wasn't just a weak immune system or something, because they said that would set her off. If it's an equilibrium problem, she wouldn't be able to ride those rides and get off and be fine. And my mom was like, no, she goes so crazy on the teacups. It's insane. And I do love the teacups. Spinning, not a problem. But It does cause some other health issues having CVS. Obviously, throwing up like every 15 minutes for hours upon hours is not good on anyone's system. So there's, in the moment, like during an actual episode, the health problems that I do face would be like the retching, the you don't want to talk. Guys, you're just so sick. The idea when people are like, can I get you anything? And you're just like, I don't even want to, like, you can't talk eventually. Especially once you start taking the medications, I could not verbalize what I needed or wanted. So it was very important for me to have my family. I drool a lot because it gets to the point where even, like, I spit because it gets to the point where I'm too weak to actually get up and go, like, to the bathroom or anything. But at the same time, the idea of swallowing my spit just makes everything worse. Not just the idea of actually doing it makes you even more nauseous. So I usually just keep tissues with me because, like, any saliva in my mouth, which obviously pretty soon you don't have any because you're real dehydrated, but while you do still have some, it just makes you even more nauseous than you already were. Another thing is, like I mentioned, your blood counts go crazy. Mine typically have problems with my potassium. You have sensitivity to light and sound. So I think this might be just because you're so dehydrated on so many medications, but as I mentioned, my medications give me really bad headaches. So light, not my friend. Loud sounds, not my friend. So you can imagine sitting in an emergency room waiting room is a pleasant experience. Not to mention everyone around you is 100% grossed out. 100%. They're always like, get her away from me. I've literally been in a hospital room. I had a roommate and the lady requested that either her or I be moved because she could not handle it. And I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I can't help it. And yeah, so I actually ended up getting a private room. So thank you, random lady. But I can understand from her perspective. They were worried that particular time my white blood cell count was really crazy too. So they were worried I had some form of an infection. And they're like, if you don't even know what infection she has, and she's clearly like bodily fluids are not everywhere. Like, I mean, guys, you're in the hospital, like you puke into like a thing, but you get the point. Like, she didn't want whatever I had. She's like, what if it's airborne? Like, I don't want this. And so I ended up getting a private room. But also, like, you get diarrhea because you're on so much medication. Not to mention your digestive tract is just freaking out, okay? It's freaking out. And then I don't have it, but as I mentioned, a lot of people get migraines. Those items, because I don't have severe episodes, knock on wood, anymore, then I don't really have to face those on a day-to-day basis. What I do face more of is, like, things that I do face now that are characteristics of this syndrome are pain in the abdomen, so like in your stomach. I get a lot of stomach aches. You get pale, you can have a lack of appetite sometimes. So obviously those two things are what contribute to people thinking you have an eating disorder. But I do not have an eating disorder. But you do tend to just get really pale really easy. You have a lack of appetite. Anxiety and depression are often things that piggyback off of it. Getting really overheated, dizzy, exhaustion. For example, in the heat, I don't do so well. It's just one of those things. It's your body has just been so weak and missing so many vitamins for so long, no matter what you took and tried to replace and whatnot. That's just one of the things now is I just get really overheated and dizzy pretty easily. Obviously staying hydrated helps me avoid that, so I try to do that. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, also acid reflux. Those are common just because you do have a lot of acid in your stomach. Whenever you get that sick, your stomach produces more acid, I think. So I do tend to take some antacids sometimes to try to counteract that. And irritable bowel syndrome is pretty common. Like I said, it's a gastrointestinal disorder, so that does tend to piggyback on the disorder. Things I don't have or have never had would be, it's called, I hope I said this right, autonomic or something like that, nervous system disorders. So I don't have any nervous system disorders, abdominal drowsiness, or extreme thirst or fever. So the only times I've ever had fever is if I had like a 24-hour bug or the flu or something. So those are items I don't deal with, but some people deal with those on a daily basis because of this disorder. Long-term things like tooth decay, I have had a lot of surgeries on my teeth to try to get different things fixed, not all of them because of CVS, but having CVS makes getting those surgeries 10 times more complicated because pain medications have a side effect of nausea. That's going to be a trigger. Drainage from, like when I had my wisdom teeth out, the drainage from like the blood and stuff, like I'm not trying to be gross, but it's just a fact. A lot of people will get nauseous and maybe throw up one or twice because of that. I did, and it caused a lot of problems. That one was like a whole week in the hospital right before semi-formal in high school, so you can imagine I was not thrilled about that. But shout out to my date at the time, which I'm not going to say his name because I don't know how he feels about that. But he even came and visited me, guys, and that was so sweet. We were just friends. We weren't even dating, and he came up and visited me at the hospital and was like, I just want you to know I still think you're beautiful. And I'm like, guys, my face was like so huge. But yeah, and esophagus issues. So some people actually eventually get a rupture from all the vomiting. So that is extremely serious. That is one of the ways that this can actually be life-threatening, but very rarely is this a life-threatening disease. I don't think of it of, oh, I have a life-threatening disease. I think of if this gets bad enough, it could lead to life-threatening issues. But like I said, I'm not to that point at this time in my life. Hopefully never. But yeah, these are just kind of some background things that CVS piggybacks off of. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. Like I said, there's going to be a third video over how to help someone if they have CVS. And it really, I just wanted to kind of bring some awareness, like what is it? Really the only time, if people have even heard of it, it's a little bit more prevalent now because the actress that plays Miranda Bailey on Grey's Anatomy, her daughter has CVS, so there is some more awareness to it. She's brought some awareness to it. They actually put it in one of the episodes, and it's a very good representation of how people don't believe you. For example, in the episode, they thought this homeless guy was a drunk, and they're like, he's just a drunk, wants meds. And that's not the case at all. He was like, I can't stop, like, throwing up. And that's the way it is. You literally can't stop. So one thing I forgot to mention is a lot of times people will say things like, just throw up once, you'll feel better. That's not the case for someone with CVS. Like, I'm not saying don't say that, because for 99% of society, well, even more than that, that is the case. If you'll just throw up once, you'll feel better. But that's not the case for someone with CVS. Like, I mean, I'm 27 years old, and like, I'm very careful with how much I drink, not only for like religious reasons, but for medical reasons, because I know if I get a hangover and it causes me to throw up, that I'm literally going to have to go to the hospital and admit that that's what the trigger is and that I need medication. And I, one, don't want to pay for that. Two, I don't want to go through the pain, all the possible health side effects and everything. And three, I don't want to deal with the shaming that's going to come along with that. So like the stakes of a hangover, the stakes of, like, people are like, oh, don't you ever just splurge and eat some gluten anyway? No, because the repercussions of that are so huge for me. And they also don't understand that that's why if you mess up my meal, I have to send it back. Like, I have to say something, and I hate doing it. Sometimes I just won't eat or I won't go out because I don't want to deal with the confrontation or anything. And luckily, my friends, they will like be the voice that I need to learn to have. But it's embarrassing, guys. And so, yeah, that's just part of it. But anyway, I've been trying to like sum this video up for like 5 minutes now. But if you have a question, drop it in the comments. I'll definitely reply back. Please thumbs up this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my channel. If you want me to do another video on this, I definitely will. I'm gonna do one more of how you can help people with CVS, but really I just wanted to bring awareness. Like, this is what it is. This is what people deal with. Don't assume someone has an eating disorder, or assume someone's doing drugs, or they're faking, or they're making it up, because there's no test for this. So it was years of trying to figure out what it was. Luckily, I had parents who were huge advocates for me and took me to tons and tons of doctors until we figured it out and figured out how to manage it. But I can't imagine either this happening to a younger child, you can't voice everything that's going on, or to someone who doesn't have that strong of a family and friends. So if you want to know more about how to help someone, if you have a friend or family member with this, stay tuned for my next video. Link will be in the description. Thanks for watching.